Hey, everybody. Welcome to Midwest Paratalk Radio. I am the G-Man. That is Deb on the other side of the world, well, state.
And I was going to say, we both live in Indiana now.
It feels like you're a world away, Deb.
I know.
Right. And joining us tonight, and I hope I say your last name right, but it's Scot and Hannah Violette.
Yep.
You got it.
Hey.
Wow. Hey, I'm 2 for 2 for last names for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So they are with Squatch America, and they are, and I don't necessarily just want to say investigators, because I think you do a lot more than just investigate. So, like we were saying before, I want to toss the ball to you, and you tell everyone a little bit about yourselves and what exactly you do as far as Bigfoot.
Well, when was it? 2020. We started Squatch America. Before that, we were known as Blue Mountain Bigfoot-researching in Eastern Oregon. I'm retired anthropologist, so I was what I used to do is Native American cultural anthropology. So I worked with tribes my whole life. All of them have Bigfoot legends. So I thought after I retired and I didn't have to protect funding from universities by looking for Bigfoot, I got to delve into this full time. So it's been a lot of fun. We've been at it for about 5 years now. And what we do is we set up a website to get reports, and that kind of accidentally blew up on us.
That was a website crashing happy accident.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
Yeah, we set up a website in the Blue Mountains of Eastern Oregon, which is kind of famous for the Freeman film and sightings over the years. So we did that, and the local newspaper did a story on us, and that got picked up by the AP Newswire. And next thing I know, we're all over the place doing everything and getting thousands of reports, and so it's been a trip.
It's been a wild ride. Mr. Toad would be puking, because this is beyond Mr. Toad's wild ride.
It sounds a lot like how the MUFON structure is, Deb.
Yeah, somewhat. It's been a while since I've been in MUFON. Yeah, but,
Right.
I don't know much about Bigfoot. I'm like I was telling our guest right before we came on, I'm predominantly the UFO side of the paranormal here, and Greg is the ghost hunting side, and but he knows a lot more about Bigfoot than I do. I think it's fascinating, and the picture you just showed me blew me away. So
that was crazy.
That was
was crazy.
Have you so you still do it? You're doing it. You still do it. You said you travel around and you go where sightings are.
Yeah, when 2020 happened, we were both teaching, and we decided not to do the online nonsense. And so we gave up our contracts, and we sold our house, bought an RV, and just hit the road. And now what we're doing is we're traveling around the country, follow up on, like, when we get like a whole bunch of Bigfoot reports on our website in one area, that's where we go. Because it's a numbers game, trying to keep up with these things and to catch these in the woods.
And we go where the Bigfoot reports are and where the festivals book us.
Yeah. So a lot of our funding is, I speak at a lot of the Bigfoot festivals all over.
Yeah, Bigfoot does not have an appreciation for dollars in bank accounts, so we don't get any money from Bigfoot. So we rely on festivals and the support of our followers and what we can do remotely. So
nice.
So I'm gathering you stay pretty busy then. You get a lot of reports.
Oh, absolutely. We get reports all the time. One of the things I did is when we have our logos and stuff all over our trucks, all over our trailer. So whenever I pull into a gas station, somebody will pull in, park, walk up to me and say, "Hey, this is what happened to me." It happens all the time. And so
I can relate to that. When I was still a member of MRIPA, which is was a paranormal group in Indianapolis that I hung out with for a while, I had a sticker on the back of my car, and I worked in a big factory. And I pull into the parking lot, and whenever I'd go out to my car at the end of the shift, inevitably someone would say, "Hey, are you the ghost lady?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's me." And they'd come and tell me their stories, or they'd want us to come do their house. So I can really relate to that.
Right.
Never got any negative. Do you ever? I never got any like negative input from people.
Yeah, very, very rarely. We don't just do the Bigfoot festivals. We also book ourselves into sportsman shows. So we set up a booth in like sportsmen's and outdoor shows, and where they're selling guns and boats and stuff like that.
The guys that are out in the woods hunting and stuff.
Yeah.
With the hunters and stuff. And every once in a while we'll get somebody, I've been hunting bear dogs my whole life. I ain't never seen one, that sort of thing. Yeah. But generally that's very, very few, maybe one or two a year. The rest of the time we get hundreds and hundreds of people showing us pictures and can you tell me what this sound is, and stories all the time.
I want to hear some of your personal experiences with Bigfoot.
Well,
let's start at the very beginning.
All right. Wow.
Very good place to start.
Good place to start. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. No, what really got me interested is, in particular, I was working in Central California with the Miwok tribe, and was helping them. We were trying to show the government how long the tribe had been in the valley, so they could get their own treaty, because they were lumped in with the Paiute tribe, and it's a whole governmental mess. Anyway, so I was going around and we were looking at pictographs and petroglyphs. That's what I did, was decipher those. And I found a particular pictograph. There was a symbol on it that I didn't know what it was. And I asked the elder of the tribe what that symbol was. And he said it was Yayali in their language, which means hairy man. And I looked at it and I was looking at the symbol and going, hairy man, that's an awful big, compared to the people that were there. I'm like, you mean like Bigfoot? And he goes, yeah. And I looked at him, I go, they exist? And he looked at me like I was stupid. Actually, this is like 20 years ago, and he said, yeah. Then 2 days later, he talked to me again. But anyway, so that kind of,
it's not a good thing to get the silent treatment from the tribal elders.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound like it would be.
Yeah. But so from then on, I kept looking, for these symbols and things, and speaking with tribal members, and doing interviews and finding and listening to their Bigfoot legends, and watching the Bigfoot dances at the powwows, and and all the history that they have with them, and getting the names for them, which kind of shocked me, because like half the tribes, the names for them were like benevolent brother, spirit being, hairy man, friend, big brother, giant people. That's another one. But the other half of tribes are like cannibal, child abductor, skinwalker, Wendigo,
boogeyman.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It's like the relationship the tribe had with the Bigfoot depended on what they named them. So, but
okay.
But after that, I've found about 4 now stories on rocks over the years with Bigfoot stories, and one of them had some symbols on it that were atlatls, and atlatls are like spear chucking devices. They're like a stick you hook a spear to and you throw it. Like
we have the same thing today, only we use them to throw balls for dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, the tribes in that particular area quit using those atlatls about 3,000 years ago and switched the bows. So is this Bigfoot story with atlatls on it 3,000 years old? You know, and it got me thinking. I mean, this has been around a lot longer than most people realize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot longer than Jerry Crew in 1957 or whatever it was in California. Yeah.
Wow. No, I mean, I hear Bigfoot sightings, and I think I've only really once ever heard of an actual human encounter. Do you get a lot of reports of, you know, it was in my backyard, it was trying to get my chickens, it was, you know, trying to get my dog, or anything of that effect?
Not really. I mean, we don't hear that too often. You know, I've had people, you know, it's like was pushing on my tent at night, or it was pushing my trailer when I was camping in the woods. There's that. But yeah, we don't hear a lot of the you know, more scary stories.
Yeah.
It's very odd. You know, we hear people getting rocks thrown at them, but they never get hit by rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, I've watched a couple documentaries where they've had they were on a Bigfoot track. They were, you know, out in the woods, and they were looking around. They found nests, and it looked like, you know, places where, you know, it would bed down for the night. But then what I thought was interesting is that on fallen trees, there were certain stone stacks on the trees. Do you guys see that a lot?
yeah, we do. We actually, one of the things we're doing now is kind of
sorry about that.
Kind of opposed to, you know, putting food and stuff out for them. We don't do that. You know, but what we do is we put out puzzles.
Sort of
puzzles
Okay.
for them to figure it out. Because we're trying to figure out how smart these things are, you know.
They're pretty dang smart.
But you know, we'll
Yeah.
put out rock stacks and have them rearranged, and then we'll come back and the next night and they'll be put back together the way they were. Rocks will go missing, and then they'll come back. We even had one rock we had on a stump, was picked up and drove into the top of the stump sideways. It was a kind of a flat rock. They just shoved it into yeah.
Wow.
I had a Native American friend, and she has passed away now. She lived in Indiana, and she wrote a book about Bigfoot and her relation. She had like a relationship with this entire like family of them that lived on her property. She had, you know, quite a bit of property and lived out in the country. And I'm sitting here trying to think of the name. It's been so long since I saw it, but I remember talking to her about it a lot. And she felt that this family that lived on her property she wasn't afraid of them, and they weren't, you know, violent or face eaters or skinwalkers or anything like that. I think her first encounter was something along the lines of the male was getting food from her garden, and she saw it several times, would take food from her garden, and she allowed it to, and eventually she claimed that she had contact with them and that they could communicate with her almost telepathically, not, you know, and a little bit of sign language, but mostly she felt telepathically. But she was very attached to them. She almost felt like family with them. And she's passed away now. So, but I always thought that was such an interesting story, because she always was so, she wasn't scared, you know, and I just thought that was kind of an interesting take on Bigfoot, because, you know, I see all the stuff on TV that everybody else sees, you know, and people hear I've seen like, what do they call it? Paranormal caught on camera, and they have the horrible scream sounds. And I've heard a strange screaming animal like but it sounded more like human to me when we went camping one time at McCormick's Creek State Park, and things like that. But I just thought that hers was kind of interesting. And like I told you before, I'm like on the UFO side of paranormal stuff here in our little chat. But I've heard a lot of people over the last 40 years, because I've been involved with ufology for 40 years. And I've heard a lot of people, and when they reference Sasquatch or Bigfoot, they feel there's a connection between UFO sightings and these creatures. Have you heard that before? And what is your opinion about that?
I have heard that before. I try to be very scientific in what I do, and
right. Yeah, you're an anthropologist.
Yeah. This came up on our show the other night.
Yeah, it did.
Did it?
He is an anthropologist, and very very flesh and blood, very three-dimensional,
nuts and bolts kind of guy, just like the Marathon.
Yes. I have a background in sociology and education, and I consider myself a deeply spiritual person. And when I say that, not without backbone to that spirituality, but and is Locke on? I don't see Locke on. Very, very much interested in what quantum physics is doing to our understanding of reality, which is turning it on its head, and we're all wrong about everything. But between the two of us, I think we both share the same. And it's all speculation, just like with ufology. It's all speculation.
Absolutely.
Because, but based on what we are sure that we know, our understanding of Bigfoot is that that Bigfoot is a humanoid species like us, very much part of the human family. If not Homo sapien, then Homo something else. Just like all the other homos that have been throughout the eons of history. And so when we're talking about Bigfoot and UFOs, what we've encountered with people is that they are sometimes witnessed together, but Bigfoot very much in a similar way that humans are trying to get away. We not really interested in going up there and having something probing our butts,
Yeah.
Okay. The way I like to put it is, if a UFO lands in the forest and a deer runs out, you're not going to assume the deer came from
the UFO. Yeah.
Right.
Get away from
it.
Yeah.
And we've just been reminded that you saw a UFO while squatching. Just a few months ago.
Just a few months ago, we did see a UFO while we were Bigfooting. But no, one of my thought is, coming from the anthropological background, is at any given time in human history, there have been 3 to 4 species of humans living together. And most people don't know, like Neanderthal and us live together. Do you know Neanderthal is still alive, right?
Well, I know my DNA test said I have like 274 strains of Neanderthal in my DNA. So I guess
does
maybe
mine. I'm like 5% Neanderthal myself.
He speaks the truth. Look at this guy. Caveman Joe here.
No, that's from the fact I'm Acadian French. People in the South call us Cajuns. But anyway, so now you know what's wrong with Cajuns. They're Neanderthals. But anyway, no, but so at any given time in human history, 3 to 4 species of humans have been living together at the same time. Why is today any different? I mean, these things walk upright. They have 10 toes, 10 fingers, small canine teeth, because I saw one. And, they don't have the big fangs. So that makes them more into the hominid classification.
Yeah. Hominid primate versus monkey primate.
Yeah.
So I'm ignorant to the differences. Can you explain that to me?
Go ahead, Professor Scott. Knock yourself
Okay.
out.
So, so
Get your coffee, folks. You'll need it.
yeah, chimpanzees are like 99% DNA from us. There's only like 1% that's
So it's
the
different.
difference.
That 1% is everything.
That 1% is everything. I mean, they walk on all fours. They have big canine teeth. You know, but that's about the difference, really. You know, between us and apes and things. Now, here's the deal. A lot of people, that picture you saw as a kid is a monkey that turns into the person, you know.
Yeah.
That's not how it worked, by the way. That was like an 1800s theory that didn't pan out.
Right.
So if you think about it this way, there was a human somewhere back in time that started in Africa, basically,
or a group of humans,
and when their population grew to the point the area they lived in couldn't sustain that population anymore, some of them broke off and they moved over here. Well, that kept going on until they ended up in Europe, and then when they got in Europe, they got a different diet, different weather, you know, a different environment they had to live in.
They had to adapt.
Their bodies adapt over 1,000 years or two.
Or 10.
Or 10. Yeah. And they look different, but it doesn't change the fact they're the same people that came out of Africa, if you think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're interchangeable. So that's why we had Neanderthal man.
Interchangeable. Let's say it like it is. They are breed compatible. They can breed
I was
with
gonna
each other.
I was gonna ask you, could they breed with each other?
Sexually
Yeah.
compatible.
Yeah. So that's why we have
NSFW.
Neanderthal DNA in us, you know.
Yeah.
We think that actually the theory now is that at some point apes and chimpanzees actually branched off us.
The original, like the mothership hominid, the mothership primate.
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
So they split early on. But since DNA has changed a whole lot of stuff, being able to sequence DNA. So it comes to the point that we found out that, you know, more than likely they split from us.
Well, yeah. And we have adapted, we have evolved and adapted to fit our environment. Tell them what makes us so unique as far as intelligence and all that. What changed? What changed for us? Come on, anthropology, man.
The fact that we're weak.
No. What did we start sucking on to make us?
Well, I was getting there.
Right,
we started out, you know, as far as being the alpha in the forest, we're not, you know. Most other animals in the forest can eat us. You know?
A gorilla will eat you.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not the apex predator. So back in Africa or wherever, you know, we were scavengers. And we had to wait until everything else was done eating on the thing for us to eat. But we were intelligent enough to start eating the bone marrow. That high protein diet grew our brains, and that's how we're smart now, basically.
And that, you know, that the whole reasoning, our ability to think and to reason and to problem solve, you know, down to a very hypermotor level. And that's one of the things that really differentiates human beings, Homo sapien, from other Homo species and from primates is our ability to manipulate. Even Bigfoot, from the handprints we found, doesn't have that degree of fine motor skills, which means they don't craft. You know, we are the only being that crafts, and so we're God.
Yeah. So, no, I think, yeah. So I think that they're another human, but in their evolutionary path,
a different adaptation.
They went with a different route. You know, I don't think they're not tool making intelligent, but they're tool using intelligent. They do know how to braid and weave and make nests and things like that.
Shove rocks in stumps.
Yeah, and shove rocks in stumps.
They know how to goof off with humans, and
yeah.
So
So I do believe they're highly intelligent.
But have a different adaptation based on their environment.
Yeah.
And their needs for survival are much different than our needs for survival.
They kept life simple. Yeah.
So way smarter than we are. You know?
I was going to say that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, you know, I'm interested in one of your fans here, the 14 digital shaman, because he talks about. He says, I've seen Bigfoot seemingly in the physical and also go through a tree and come out of a tree. And there's some awesome research happening with that.
There is.
Do I need to jog your memory?
No.
Okay.
You're talking about bear hides, right?
I am talking about,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So there's a theory that we're working on, and I say we as in
The community.
the Bigfoot community. And a good friend of mine, Todd Neese, who's another Bigfooter from the Pacific Northwest, actually, he came up with this idea. So all the hair samples that they attribute to Bigfoot, you know, when you put them under a microscope, they don't have a core in them. They're basically translucent. There's one other animal on the planet that has that hair, that translucent hair like that, and that's a polar bear.
Mm-hmm.
So people probably don't know this, but polar bears are not white.
Right.
And their hair is translucent. So if they're in the snow, if they're in the forest, they're brownish and green.
If they're in the San Francisco Zoo, they look gray.
They look gray because they're on concrete.
So
so that their hair reflects what's around them, basically. And we think, since the Bigfoot hairs that we attribute to Bigfoot, the hairs that we have that don't match anything else but match each other, have that same translucent.
they're without the central core,
without
the medulla.
the central core, the medulla. But they do have a hair color to them. But like I said, it's their hair is
gray,
or it's clearish, basically, not completely clear, but clearish. So
and so it picks up their environment. That's a theory, that it picks up the coloring of their environment.
So right now we're working on an experiment where we got a bear hide and some not monofilament, but what's it? Anyway, that fiber optic. Really,
we're into that age where nothing.
Yeah, I'm right.
It's hard
there
to get
with
stuff
you.
out of here. Yeah, but really thin fiber optic line, and then we're sewing it into half of the bear hide, and then we're going to take it out in the woods and throw it in different places and different lighting and take pictures to see if it morphs or if it cloaks.
It's generated like a cloaking device.
Yeah.
You know,
Very much so. And the other thing, if we talk about any species, so my favorite creature, as a ufologist, I think you'll appreciate this. My favorite creature in the universe is an octopus. Like,
yes.
I in fact, when I was 15, I begged my parents, because they never used the bathtub. I said, we could get an octopus and put it in the bathtub. That was a hard pass. I was ready to make friends and have a pet octopus that turned brown when I rubbed its belly. You know, I was all about that. But if you watch an octopus, you know, they take, instant camouflage wherever they are. And they're smarter than we are too. And I really think
absolutely.
They are aliens. It's like, what is this? They have no DNA like anything else on the planet. But so I think they are.
See, one of the shocking things that I learned way back when in university was when the professor told me my DNA, that there's a code in my DNA that's the same code as a tree or a blade of grass or a bird,
any other carbon-based life
or
form.
any other thing that comes from this planet. There's like a code that says you're from Earth, basically.
And the
octopus does not have that. So
I just saw something on the TV the other day about octopus.
They really are
aliens.
Really are Cthulhu.
They think they came here on a comet, you know, as
but here's where they are masters of blending into their environment. And especially, if I'm going to put a plug for our friend Michael Freeman, Paul Freeman was his father, and who's one of the most iconic Bigfoot researchers in Bigfoot history. But with the release of his new book and the video footage that's contained in that book, and it's called The Freeman Bigfoot Files. So go to YouTube, or not YouTube, go to Amazon and find the Freeman Bigfoot Files. Is worth the money. It's a little spendy, but worth the money, because there is video footage in there where you can watch the Bigfoot that we call Big Jill. You can watch her bend her body to mirror a tree, and you can no longer see her. She just totally vanishes into the landscape.
Yeah, she walks behind a tree. You see her walk behind the tree, and then she just bends over, matching the limb next to her.
Yeah.
And she just vanishes.
And so, you're talking about a creature that is perfectly suited to blending in with its environment. And I always, people ask us all the time, well, I'm out in the woods all the time, and I never saw a Bigfoot. Why? And then I point to the big 10-foot animatronic Bigfoot behind us. I said, did you see that? No.
Yeah. Just because you didn't see him doesn't mean they didn't see you.
And we are, and human beings are the most situational, unaware creatures ever. And so so with people saying I saw it disappear, well, I'm sure you did. Actually, I'm sure I totally get that you saw that, but what you think was disappearing was exactly what it meant to be, which was removing itself from your field of vision. Doesn't mean it's not there anymore, and it doesn't mean it is not completely dimensional. So anyway.
Great sense. Wow.
Right. And we've had conversations with different people as well. And Deb and I even like wondering if Bigfoot were interdimensional, would that be a possibility? Because one of the things, and I scratch my head, is that I don't know that anyone has ever been able to identify any kind of remains. But where does it go when they die? Is it that, their clan takes care of the dead and hides the body? Is it that it is interdimensional and it just goes someplace? Or I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, here I'm going to give you a long story for a short answer. What's going to happen? Dr. Jeff Meldrum from Idaho State University, he just he had his students do a study, and what they did is they just recently came up with this app for your phone called Bigfoot Mapping Project. And what that did is it combined all the sightings over all the years into one database from all the different groups, and people are still submitting stuff to that. And they took that and basically figured out how many Bigfoot are in the woods. A good estimate. Their estimate was 3, like a family, like mom, dad, and a baby, for every 20 square miles of national forest.
That's a lot.
There's a lot of them, but the problem is, have you ever tried to find something in 20 square miles of forest?
Being the most situationally unaware, non-observant creatures on the planet.
National Geographic a few years ago did a study where they took a deer and strapped it down and put a time-lapse camera on it and looked how long it lasted. It was 9 days, and the bones were gone in 9 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because a lot of people don't realize this. They've actually had video of deers eating bones. They have video. Well, we know porcupines eat them because that's their main diet. And and pound for pound, by body mass weight, the most prevalent animal wood eats bone, and that's field mice.
They also eat trailer wires.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, my thoughts are, you got to be in the right place in 20 square miles within 9 days of one dying.
Mhm.
The chances of that is virtually impossible, especially in the country these things live in. Most of the reports we get are very steep, rugged countries where people have sightings.
And generally in heavily forested areas, which are going to be far more damp and humid than desert areas. So things disintegrate, decompose really fast.
So the odds are bad in the first place. And another thing people don't realize, nobody's ever found the bones of a wolverine. Nobody's ever found the bones of a bear that died naturally in the woods, just because of the numbers. Very rarely you'll catch one that got caught somewhere in a fence or whatever, that sort of thing. But if they're intelligent and they do take care of their dead, the chances are you'll never find a dead body.
Yeah. Now, does that mean to say that somehow Bigfoot is has not descended as low deeply into the third dimension as humans, and so therefore is not nearly as dense a creature? I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe they meditate more than I do. But so far, I meditate a lot, and so far I have not been able to teleport anywhere or anything. And I'm saying that very seriously because
Yeah,
this is my bag, totally my bag to talk about.
and I'm really open-minded, obviously, but I see the, I get that this is kind of on a different, this is more scientific than, well, I don't know. Lately, the UFO community has really ramped up its game, I guess, with all the new disclosure stuff and the hearings with Congress and things like that. I think there's something to it for sure. I don't know what'll come of it. We'll have to wait and see. But I've never really felt the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. Yeah. I think that, just like you said, if people are out and they're, outside and they're looking around and looking up, they're more likely to see something. That doesn't necessarily mean the two are connected, Mm-hmm. I hope my questions don't sound too ignorant, but I know I've heard the term Sasquatch, I've heard the term Bigfoot, I've heard the term abominable snowman. I mean, are these all in the same family, in the same group of creature?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Native Americans, there's 75 names for these things,
at least
in the tribal area.
And that's just in the North America.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, a lot of people don't realize that Bigfoot, the word Bigfoot, was actually coined by a newspaper guy in, I think it was 1957.
Jerry Crew. It was after Jerry Crew.
Yeah, it was after Jerry Crew had found a footprint. They did a story in the newspaper in the Humboldt Times in California, and they said, this guy found a really big foot, and that's where that started, the name Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where media started the narrative.
Yeah. So, but the word Sasquatch is actually a Sahelish Indian name for them. They have the Almasti in Russia, I can never say that, Yowie in Australia,
Yeti in Tibet, and the Himalaya area,
the orang pendek in the Philippines. This is not just a North American thing. This is a worldwide phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So it's just a regional names for the same thing.
And is the goal, I mean, are we trying to, I know you're trying to raise awareness of this life form here, and is there, what is your hopes for
What is our
moving
mission?
forward with it? What's your mission statement with the things? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you want to know our mission statement?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
Well,
is your aim to make them?
Our job is to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated. However, with that said,
Yeah.
our aim in investigation, I think the community as a whole, we've given up trying to prove them because we have enough evidence. It's like the whole ufology field. There's plenty of evidence, and it's right in front of our very eyes. And there's a book, I forgot what the book is called. It's a book about conspiracy theories, but it said that the biggest job of any base, the biggest job that the powers that we have are to convince you that a conspiracy is false, right? And so they do everything they can to fight. So this has a point. Don't look at me. So we went to Roswell, of course, because we could not be. We were in New Mexico. We went to Roswell. Of course, we toured the museum. Awesome museum. And unlike some tourists that go through and go, "Ooh, this is kind of cool." I mean, I was reading all the court documents on the wall, and I was like, because before I was teaching, I was a social worker. I'm very, very familiar with court documents and reading these things, and I'm going, there's an awful lot of court documents here, and there's an awful lot of redaction in these court documents, and what are they trying to hide?
Yeah.
And so the government and other entities have spent a lot of time trying to say, oh, y'all are just crazy and this didn't really happen and blah, 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 blah. I came out of that museum going, methinks thou doth protest too much. And I am now a believer that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. I mean, the evidence is right there and how hard they try to debunk it, right? That's my thought. So that's why, with the Bigfoot community, we're not trying to prove it anymore. The evidence is there. They exist. So what we as Squatch America are doing is we are collecting stories and experiences and basically conducting qualitative research to try and see patterns. How do they move? How do they exist? Do they exist in these little 3-foursome families? Are they in larger clans? Where are they certain times of the year? So at some point, when we ask enough of these questions and get enough of these experience stories and encounter stories, we can say, you know what, I think we can probably research where they will be in this month of the year, and and start to dial in the research. So
and start to get ahead of them so we can. And then the other thing we're doing is, I mentioned earlier, is we're putting puzzles in the woods. The reason that I'm trying to diagnose their intelligence.
Yeah.
And if we take the Native American stories that we have and the modern stories that we have of these things, we're going to be able to figure out their culture. That's what as a cultural anthropologist, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. How do they behave?
I meant,
Right.
How long do they live? What are their family structures like? What's the gestation period of a Bigfoot? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are that's all the things that I want to know about. I mean, and do they travel with the weather? Do they move about like some nomadic human groups do? I mean, have you found in your research that they tend to stay in the same place?
Well, here's an interesting thing, and this started like way back. I refer to Paul Freeman a whole lot because in the Blue Mountains, because that's where I grew up. That's a place I know. But what's really interesting is the reports and the footprint finds that we find. Like Paul Freeman found, 70 footprints in one summer. And it wasn't just him; it was him.
He had a whole crew with him.
And Wes Summerlin and Dar Addington and a couple other researchers in the area were finding footprints all summer, and then nothing. And then 4 years later, Dr. Jeff Meldrum walks into that area and finds footprints. And he casts them, and they match the ones that Paul had from 4 years ago. And now that we're getting reports and being able to look at areas and put pins and maps and times and dates and things like that, it seems like they do have a pattern. Like they will be in this area for a year, and then they'll move further south for a year. They'll move over here for a year, and about 4 years they'll come back here. It's almost like they're rotating crops if you think about it. They're
not being parasitic on any one area.
So so like we're going to hunt here for this year, and then we're going to go here this year, and then here this year, and we'll come back here 4 years later. And it seems to be a pattern. It's not that they migrate. I think they
have a predictable pattern, and they follow the seasonal food source. So in in the height of summer, you're going to see them higher up in elevation, and then as it gets colder, they're dropping down, and kind of following. In Eastern Oregon, they follow the berries and the mushrooms. We see that happening a lot, and then as those get less plentiful, then they start following the deer. So they eat very seasonally. I'm sure they're very healthy. Far healthier than we are.
Probably, yeah. They don't have McDonald's and
they know how to cook those corn syrup.
Right.
Yeah. Just the corn out of the gardens.
Well, so that story was actually that you told about your friend who said that. That's really charming because we know someone who has a very similar relationship. She lives in a rural area outside of Eugene, Oregon. She's got a lot of land, and she has a very friendly relationship with a small family of Bigfoot. And so I really can see that happening, where there's been enough contact over many years that they know that you're not a threat, and they're feeling comfortable enough to, come grab, we need a couple corn cobs for the supper tonight.
Well, in her case, it's an apple orchard.
Yeah, in her case, it's an apple orchard. But I can totally see that happening, and I can totally understand why someone isn't afraid. I want to say Mr. Digital Shaman. First of all, I love your name, and I totally agree with you. In fact, I'm not woo. I just am convinced after 54 years on this planet that everything we call magic is just science we haven't figured out yet. So,
Right. Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
Now, sitting here listening to you guys talk and it made me wonder, out of all the reports that you receive for sightings and whatnot, what is the most dense area that you get your sightings reported from? Is there like one specific spot in the U.S. that it's like, man, this place is just booming, we've got to get there?
Those come and go, but I mean, there's several spots in the United States that I would say that have a higher population of these things. And get ready to be shocked. Eastern Texas, believe it or not,
thick.
Really? The Sam Houston Forest, up near Texarkana and the Arkansas border,
and that's southeastern Oklahoma.
Well, everybody knows Falk, Arkansas, in that area. From the Legend of Boggy Creek. That's a real dense place. Actually, we get a lot of reports from there. Probably, well, us personally, we get more reports from there than we do like the Pacific Northwest.
Wow. What about the Midwest? Like, at the beginning of the show, I was telling you, like, just probably 2 or 3 cities up from me, they've had sightings, repeated sightings. I mean, are you getting anything, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, northern, eastern Kentucky, Tennessee, anything of that nature?
Yeah, but they're rarer,
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe because of the population density, in those states, the human population density. Well, here's something interesting. The Chippewa tribe, which is up in that area, of Michigan and Indiana and
Saskatchewan.
In Saskatchewan. They have an old story that's been passed down that said when the white man came, the Bigfoot told the tribe, they had a treaty with him. The Bigfoot told the tribe not to trade with the white man. And if you do, we're going to go to the mountains and never be seen again. and they did trade with the white man. So the Bigfoot went to the mountains and never be seen again.
Yeah.
So,
but for everything that we've been able to deduce as a community is that where you have black bear population, that's pretty consistent. It's the same
habitat.
And the other thing that we've noticed, the cave structures.
Yeah.
So if you take a map of all the cave structures in the United States and overlay it with all the Bigfoot sighting reports, they're almost identical.
And there are a lot of caves in Kentucky and in southern Indiana. There's quite a few caves down there. And I was going to ask you, I saw the pictures on your website of all the nests that they built, and I was kind of aware that they did a lot of that, but I also wondered, did they use caves? Do they live in the caves? Is there anybody found evidence of them being, living in caves too?
Oh, absolutely. Man, up in Eastern Oregon, where I grew up, there's tons of Bigfoot sightings. I mean, it's a Bigfoot hotspot. And there's also a lot of people don't realize that Eastern Oregon, more gold in the 1800s was taken out of Eastern Oregon than there was California. It's a gold rich area. So there's in just 2 counties, there's 150 abandoned mines in the mountains up there. And some of them are 5 miles deep, so yeah, we think they habitate those. We even had
we had a gold mining company call us and say, we got some weird stuff happening down here in their mine system.
So they took us into the mine, and
there was some weird stuff happening.
There was some weird stuff. They were finding skinned rabbits with their hair pulled off of them. Down deep in the mine.
Yeah, the hides were left behind. The meat was taken, right? Yeah, so weird. So, hey, did you want to talk about how Bigfoot prints just stop and
vanish?
No backtracking?
It's actually very hard to make a print, believe it or not. And especially in a lot of the places where Bigfoots are, it's very rocky, very loamy. Lots of pine needles and stuff on the ground, which doesn't leave prints. They also have big feet, believe it or not, and that actually spreads out the weight, over the surface. So they actually don't press down on the ground as hard as we do. So it's a lot harder to make a footprint than you think. And we've actually done experiments to do that. And in fact, weird story. I was Nike shoe company. They wanted to do a Bigfoot commercial and say Bigfoot wore Nike shoes,
size 27. In case you wanted to know.
So they had this.
God.
So I think you can still look it up. It's on YouTube. It's the search for something on Nike's channel.
Search for something.
Yeah. So they hired me to come in to be their Bigfoot expert, and so I was filmed in the commercial, and we were out in the woods looking for Bigfoot. Well, they had this 22 or 27-inch Nike shoe they've made for Bigfoot, and I'll give it to them someday. But we were going to plant that in some mud in the forest and to cast it, the Nike shoe print. Well, I literally had to pack water in and mix the ground up to be able to make that print, to push it in the ground. I mean, we were standing on it, jumping up and down, trying to make footprints with it. And I had to make it really sloppy in a mud puddle, in order to make the print. So it's a lot harder than people think. Usually you find 2 or 3 because they'll walk through something that'll leave a print, and then they're in grass or in gravel
or bushes yeah, we found a pretty good trackway when he had his sighting of a juvenile and an adult next to each other, and we only there was only one we could cast, but I think there was only a total of 3 prints. It was obvious that they kept moving, but just not in a substrate that would accept a print.
Yeah. So when I had my signing, I saw an
I used
adult.
the word substrate.
You did.
I was so proud of myself.
You know, when I had my sighting, I saw an adult and a juvenile together. So I didn't just take a picture in the woods and then try to pick out the faces in it. I actually saw them with my eyes. I got one picture. I got pictures of it moments later that they weren't sitting there, you know, in that area. Then we also spent, we spent 3 days there. We went down to the spot. We found 16-inch footprints with 9-inch footprints next to them. And what she's saying, they walked up this hill, and we had 3 of the 16-inch footprint going up the hill. We only had 2 of the 9-inch footprints halfway up the hill. We found this little scuff mark. I think the mother just picked him up or grabbed him by his ear and hauled him up the hill. You know?
And the story I write in my head is she's a mama and she's just had enough of his farting around.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Come on, let's go.
Species.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're all putting up with that nonsense
motherese.
for so long.
Yeah.
It's universal. The
Yes.
smotherese.
Yeah.
And probably interdimensional.
Probably. I always told my kids I had eyes in the back of my head. I could see everything.
It's true. It's true. It is absolutely true. But, you know, I think earlier you were mentioning how your friend thought she was communicating with them telepathically. You know, intuition is a sense that has really been compromised in our existence, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And intuition can be developed. And if you are not, you know, if you know, tell me that your dog doesn't know exactly what you're thinking at every moment of the day.
I mean, we become astute body,
Yes.
you know, signal readers. I mean, I can read my husband's face. I know exactly what he's
and
thinking.
you can feel his energy.
Yes.
You can feel his energy. You can interpret it. And so, you know, for particularly for creatures who live in nature, first of all, they haven't had their intuition dampened by, you know, these and all the distractions we have. But, you know, if there are people out there who have specifically and intentionally developed their sense of intuition, absolutely, you can feel each other. Totally. And so her idea that they were communicating with that kind of, you know, that type of communication doesn't surprise me at all.
And then she, you know, there was also some, like she described, the sign language, you know, that developed between the two of them over a period of years. I mean, this
my dog
went
knows
on for
this.
10 years. My dog knows this.
So here's an interesting thing. Like all the tribes in the nation actually had a trade routes, and they traded. We found obsidian for arrowheads that were from California in Maine, you know, so they had this extensive trade route. Well, they had all their own individual languages, but a lot of people don't realize that the Native American Sign Language was common. That's how they traded. So I'm wondering if this is what they taught Bigfoot, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, where they were communicating, because they said they had treaties, they communicated with Bigfoot. I wonder if the tribal sign language is what Bigfoot still knows and passes on and uses.
And we've heard instances of that when we were talking with someone from the Mescalero Apache tribe, and they mentioned that I think I can't remember, but there was a tribal member that we were talking to once, and they did say that that they were able to communicate with basic Native American Sign Language with Big Brother.
Yeah. So
I mean, with evolution being what it is, as far as, you know, going from signing to actual speak and talk, I mean, I guess my question would be, and it's probably, I mean, you don't have to answer it, no one really does. It's just me wondering, you know, how come they haven't picked up on a more humanized vocal even pattern than just signing? You know what I mean?
Maybe it's not necessary. They don't need to.
No, maybe.
Well, there's thoughts, from the Sierra Sounds and stuff that they do have their own language.
Different than ours.
Different than ours. Yeah.
Just like the dolphins and the whales. The sign. I always wanted to be. That's my Jones. There, I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was.
You wanted to be a whale? What?
No, fool.
So did I. That was about the time I wanted a pet octopus too. I was all down with that.
And yeah, and what fascinated me with them was they communicate with each other. Those squeaks and whistles and pops and whatever that means something to them.
That's a language.
So
tell me Flipper didn't know exactly what was happening.
Right. So
you watch reruns of Flipper until you die. I totally
yes, I did. I'm on totally there.
Oh,
but yeah.
Well, so back in 2021, I know you want to end. Back in 2021, I want to say maybe April of 2021. I had a vocal professor from Anderson University in South Carolina who came on to a podcast with us, and he analyzed a lot of the sounds that we have on recording. And he did say, whatever made that sound has one extra vocal fold. That has 3 vocal folds. Humans only have 2. We used to have 3. And so we don't make that sound anymore.
Because it's in different, it's in
3 octaves.
3 octaves.
Yeah.
3 octaves, and we can only do 2.
Or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so if people want to go back on our YouTube channel, which is Squatch America on YouTube, and find springtime, about April of 2021, you can see that episode because he really goes into a vocal analysis of each sound that we have.
Yeah. He was a choir. He was actually a choir professor in singing. So.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Well, listen, you guys, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I want you to put out all your socials and all that information where people can find you. I do know you have a YouTube channel because I watched quite a few videos today while I was working. So yeah, go ahead and put that out there for everyone so they can find you and get a hold of you if they need to. And
great.
Okay, so if you got reports, go to squatchamerica.com, and we have a report form. You can just click right on the front of the page there and put it in. We also have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, and that's about as far as we go. So, and we're Squatch America on everything. So
yeah. And we're on
perfect.
Facebook.
All right.
And I don't know how to do the Facebook one, so just look for Squatch America.
I mean, you could just type it in the search and it will definitely pull you guys up. And you got the logos, Deb put it up on the screen for us and the YouTube URL.
I'm going to subscribe to your channel because I was really getting into watching your videos, and I'm going to keep an eye on y'all and see how things are going. Maybe, hopefully we can get you come back.
Please do.
And my questions won't be so silly.
And I want to encourage, I see a lot of our people on tonight. And so if you haven't subscribed to Midwest Paratalk Radio, do it now. Click like,
please,
do all the things, okay?
Please do that.
And
we
want thank you for coming on in the chat room too. It was great to see everybody.
Yes, for sure. And we will. I mean, I would love to have you guys back. We'll do. I think we're booked up for the next couple of months, but I definitely want to get you back, especially when it starts getting a little warmer. And we get past all this winter crap, and maybe you can tell us about where you've been, what you did at that particular time, where I think that would be very, very cool, and we'll kind of
I want to hear more stories from you. I want to hear more about some of your favorite places.
We do have an exciting little mini expedition planned for June, and so hook up with us midsummer, and we should have some awesome stuff for you.
That's
outstanding.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, thank you guys.
Nice to meet you. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night. All right, you guys, we want to thank Scot and Hannah for coming on to the show with us tonight, talking about the big feats. That is I don't know, it's just an interesting topic for me. I'm a crypto guy anyway. I like the stories of everything that goes on that normal people don't know about.
I'm learning, I'm learning more and more every day. And I really hope they can come back and be our guests again. I want to pick their brains. I want to hear some of their favorite, stories. They said they've been doing it for a long time and that they've
Right.
lots and lots of stories from people, and I want to hear some of them.
Right.
I mean, and I'm planning on educating myself so I don't sound like I'm such a noob when I talk to them again. I can tell I can tell you anything you need to know about ufology for the last 50 years.
Right. Yeah.
I
Same with paranormal. Yeah.
Crypto is new to me, and I'm so happy that we were able to get them on.
I love the information. Like I said, I mean, it just, and that's a great thing about the podcast platform, because I'm a noob with it as well. I mean, I've watched videos and I've had a couple people in the past. I mean, like way back 15 years ago on the show about Bigfoot. I think we were still living in Franklin at that point. But it's always cool to know. And I like their motto. It's basically, they're not, and I've told you, like this is kind of my view on the paranormal as well. I'm not here to prove to you that the paranormal is real. I'm just here to investigate the paranormal, and I know my personal beliefs and what I've seen and done. So I'll show you what I have, and you can make your decision upon looking at the evidence. And if it is what it is at that point.
Yeah, and me with ufology, I mean, there's the whole gambit of people in ufology. You got the nuts and bolts guys, and you got the real out there guys. And I try to drift. I try to stay somewhere in the middle. The science part fascinates me, and kind of the woo-woo stuff kind of fascinates me, just on a human level, to see how some people's minds work. And I love I've always been fascinated with quantum physics and string theory and how everything is connected, and somehow all of this is connected, and we're all connected to it. And I don't know if I'll ever figure that out until I, get rid of this meat sack I'm driving around in and go on to the next thing. But
it all started with a big bang.
Anyways, that was a great show.
It was a great show.
Thanks again to our guests. We really appreciate it. And
remember, you guys, go out there. I just posted up on the video their YouTube page. Go back out there, check them out, subscribe, like them, and leave comments for them and questions for them. And if you see a Bigfoot, put in a report. So, all right. With that being said, adios. The old man has to go to work here in about 20 minutes.
And the old lady got to go take the dogs out. So,
all right, you guys, I really appreciate you hanging out here. Remember, you can check us next Thursday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, on MidwestParatalkRadio.com and YouTube at Midwest Paratalk Radio. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye, Deb.
Bye, Greg.